kiosk that marks what was once Detroit's Chinatown still stands. And this week, another marker to be unveiled.
I think about the message today and why the street naming is so important. We need to keep telling and retelling the story of Vincent Chin.
Local Asian American groups pushed for the street naming, getting help from Detroit City Council person Gabriela Santiago Romero.
While a small token of recognition, it's my hope that the second Guir Street sign helps us do just that. May his name, and every time we read it and hear it, serve as a reminder of what we have to overcome together and what we have overcome.
We're here for remembrance of Vincent Chin, an individual who was very much like many of us growing up in Detroit. He was a typical 27-year-old Chinese American, a draftsman, a waiter in a Chinese restaurant, working his way through school.
In 1982, anti-Asian hostilities had risen in Detroit as Japanese imports displaced U.S.-made vehicles. That's when Vincent Chin was killed with a baseball bat. Judge Charles Kaufman handed down a sentence requiring no prison time for the two men involved. Nationwide, Asian Americans were alarmed, and so were others like Mayor Mike Duggan, who was in law school at the time.
And it hit me particularly because one of Judge Kaufman's colleagues on the Wayne County Circuit Court was my father, who was also a judge. I called him that night so angry. And of course, my father felt it discredited everybody on the bench, but he said to me, "Don't discount the role of the prosecutor." The prosecutor pled the case down and they didn't bother to show up the day of the sentencing.
The Vincent Chin case united Asian Americans in a fight for justice.
The protest spread from the Asian American community to everybody, and Bill Cahalan resigned the next year under that protest, and a new prosecutor, John O'Hare, got elected in 1984. And one of John O'Hare's first hired was a young graduate at University of Michigan Law School. It was me.
The Chinese population left this neighborhood decades ago, but Sandy Fatt still remembers.
Both sets of my grandparents came over from Canton, China, when a missionary from Central Methodist Church came to Canton and welcomed the Chinese people to come to Detroit.
Sandy Fatt said this photo was taken in 1942.
This is my mom's mom, and this is my dad's mom. We have identified 17 of the 22 women, and we're trying to identify the last 5. So these women were all, fixed up marriages, and they came and followed their husbands here from Canton, China.
2 years ago, one of the last historic Chinatown structures that had served as a community center was demolished. That made headlines. Long vacant, some wished it could have been preserved. Last year, better news. A $1 million Chinatown-themed streetscape improvement project was announced, expected to start soon.
They're going to start building it out to really improve the public look and feel of the space, and then leveraging this cultural heritage of the neighborhood and have it be, sort of a foundation for what can come next in a broader sense. And really, that's the open question. It's like, what do we want to see next?
There's room for more housing and businesses here, while the Detroit Chinatown Vision Committee wants to see some Pan-Asian restaurants in the future. The former Chung's restaurant, closed for several decades, now renovated, looking for tenants according to our reporting partner, Bridge Detroit.
I just felt that it was...
Matt Hessler, he preserved the Chinatown signpost, commissioning the banners on display after he bought one other surviving Chinatown building 10 years ago from the Chinese Merchants Association.
We ended up going to the closing with 2 old Chinese people who sort of said, what are you going to do with this place? And I said, I'm going to fill it full of businesses,
One of those businesses, the Peterboro, a Chinese restaurant in business 9 years.
We know it's not going to be the epicenter of a Chinatown, but we want to preserve what was historically Chinatown in Detroit. And there's no reason why it can't be something like Greek Town, which celebrates Greeks, or Corktown, which is Irish. Like, we gotta build this area up.
Watch One Detroit, Thursday at 7:30 p.m. You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.